I figured I need to do a video like this for once. Um, yeah, when I say, um, because I've talked about skin tone before and how I see things pertaining to what is dark, brown, and light skinned. To me, anybody who is brown skinned, I just had an argument about this, but I just want to put it out there what I consider brown skin, okay? Um, Anybody basically lighter than chocolate, in my opinion, would be considered brown skinned. You see the girl right on top of Lupita? She, to me, would still be the darkest a brown skinned woman could be. Because for me, it's been where I grew up thinking basically that people like her and the other girl were darker all my childhood. And I literally thought the girl at the bottom corner was um, medium. But the thing was, a lot of the time you would encounter, what does brown skin mean? Brown skin means specifically several different things, but they all conflate to the same person. So basically, someone who is brown skinned is someone who is about the average complexion for a black person. Now, I can tell you, I do not see on average a person the complexion of the lady at the top um, left. I mean, right, sorry. I don't see anyone on average about the same complexion as the lady on the top right. But I don't see anyone of the bottom right to be the average complexion for black people either. Generally, what I see most often is between the one on the top left and the middle one on the right. Their complexion range generally is average for brown skin, in my opinion. At least that's the color I see most black people being. Now, it does seem like a lot of black people wish that the average complexion was the bottom left, but not in my opinion. Not in reality. Also, brown skin is basically darker than a paper bag. And in that case, so it would be the one on the top um, left and the one in the middle again, would fall into those categories of being darker than a paper bag, but also lighter than chocolate. To me, honestly, that's why I brought 5 photos of different complexions. Because to me, honestly, when it comes to colorism, I kind of think there's like 9 different categories, but 5 main categories and 3 designations. So there's 3 designations of light, medium, and dark skinned. Light skin is anything lighter than a paper bag. Medium is anything in between the color of a paper bag and chocolate, and anything darker than that is dark skinned. That's why the two kitty corner to each other would be considered light skin, in my opinion. The one on the left corner would be light skin, and the other one on the top right corner would be considered light skin. Technically, they're both lighter than a paper bag. Now, would they both have the same experiences? Heck no, they're very different in complexions. I would say even the 2 brown skinned women that I've posted would not have the same experiences either. Because many of the time, the woman on the right in the middle they will call themselves brown skin, but they will also sometimes call themselves dark skin, almost like it's interchangeable. Um, and you can see that many of the time their perspective on colorism is very much leaning towards dark-skinned women. Now, it sometimes is not, too, because my mother is very similar complected to the lady in the middle on the right. And she always said colorism didn't exist because she understood. One, I think she was smart enough to understand that colorism works on a continuum until it hits white. So then, very well, colorism doesn't really exist because it doesn't benefit it doesn't benefit anybody besides white women. And so, you know, as far as colorism, that's how I was taught. So sometimes I guess you could say, even if someone is on the darker end of brown skin, they still might not believe in the whole colorism idea of things. There are plenty of dark skinned people who don't believe in colorism as well. Um, but like when I'm talking about different experiences pertaining to one's skin tone, and I say someone is, for example, brown skinned, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about someone in between the complexion of the lady on the top left and the lady on the right in the middle. That's what I'm talking about, a complexion like that. Basically, like I said, between the color of a paper bag and chocolate. A lot of the time, I think, with the lighter complexion, with the light brown skinned lady at the bottom, on the bottom left corner, and the actual light skinned woman on the top right corner, to me, I do call them both light skinned, technically. I will always do that because I'm pointing out that they're both lighter than a paper bag. Also, I point this out because when we talk about colorism, usually colorism crybabies will complain about both types of women. And you notice this because anytime these women are famous, anytime these women have any luck, then they're going to blame it on their light skin. They weren't light skinned at one point, but then when something good happens to them, it's all about colorism again. And now that's not obviously in the case of the lady at the top right, but at the bottom left, that's exactly what happens. You can see plenty of celebrities who are her color. They will be called light skinned when the time comes, you know, and then they will not be called light skinned other times. It's all about basically, you know, whatever benefits the situation to call them, basically. But at the end of the day, they're going to be treated a certain way. And, like on certain platforms that are against light skinned people, they get included as well. That's why I generally consider them light skinned in that regard, basically. And also because, like I said, technically they are, because they are lighter than the paper bag. I would say this lady here is the darkest you can be before you are darker than a paper bag. Or at least the color of it. And anyway, between their experiences, I would say the experiences are very different, you see. Like someone at the top right would, for example, they'd often talk about how people think they're mixed with white and how, people exclude them more often as black people. The one at the bottom left would not get that experience completely. But then there's also the problem of, for example, with different aspects of society. For example, when it comes to the self-hating dark-skinned black man, both types of women get preferred, basically. And this is a topic that kind of irks a lot of darker skinned women, and it irks actually lighter skinned women too sometimes because, you know, sometimes people want to think it's only the lightest that get benefited. Oh shit. Alright, sorry about that. Yeah, there was a technical difficulty there, but point is, yeah, that's basically what I consider brown-skinned. The kitty corner to each other, those two would be considered different versions of light skin, and dark skin would be at the bottom on the right. So I also think that between light skin, there's 3 categories of light skin. So, for example, there's high yellow or white passing. That is like Rashida Jones, Mariah Carey, kind of, I think. Halsey, things like that. And then light skin, like just normal light skin, is more so like, for example, would be like yellow, basically. And that's like about the same complexion as Zendaya Coleman, Alicia Keys, Tisha Campbell, Faith Evans, things like that. And then, to me, the last of it, there's stuff in between. Like, for example, there's people like Doja Cat and the Maori twins, and like, who else? The lady on Blackish, I'm trying to think of. I can't think of her name. For Tracy Ellis Ross. Yeah, those would be people who, to me, are not quite yellow, but they're not quite red to me. They're not light brown, really. They're not caramel or whatever you want to call that. Then I kind of feel like the last category would fall under. So to me, the like typical light skinned person would be yellow, like the example I gave at the top right. But at the bottom left, I would think would fall under more of a dark reddish complexion to me. Reddish, like a red bone, something like that. Light brown. To me, that's more so like Rihanna, Nicki Minaj. Lupita and the one in the middle on the last and ending shades are dark skin, dark brown. They're in the same class in the makeup spectrum. I actually picked up the one in the middle from, what's it called, Fenty. So I think she's a Fenty model, and her number was 440, I believe. I believe Lupita would be more like a 470. So, I mean, to me, I think, yeah, they're close, but my definition of dark skinned, personally, I always thought was chocolate or darker. I believe this lady here, she's 440 in Fenty. That's my mother's complexion. She actually used to, like, I would see her with chocolate, and she's lighter than chocolate by a little bit, very little. That's why I said that's like the last color, in my opinion, to brown. Me too. I'm caramel too. I read your other comment. That's cool. But yeah, to me, I've always considered like brown skin basically darker than a paper bag to me, which would be like the lady at the top left all the way to like the lady at the middle right there. And the thing is, the reason why I do that is because often I see people who are the lady in the middle's complexion on the right call themselves brown skin, and they call themselves dark skin interchangeably sometimes. So to me, I'm like, okay, so I guess you think you're on the darker end of brown. So I include them, and I think factually maybe they have a point, because, like I said, they aren't completely chocolate in complexion, they're slightly lighter. So technically, I think that's why they consider themselves brown. I've never talked to them about it, but I just assume that's what's going on there, because I've heard so many people try and claim that like someone like a Gabrielle Union or like a Brandy are not dark skinned. From my perspective, I thought they were dark skinned. I thought everyone was dark skinned actually when I was younger, except the one at the bottom left and the one at the top right. Those two I thought were actually more so. They're not like the one at the top left. I mean, top right would be light skinned. The other one would be brown skinned, in my opinion. Oh, there's another comment. Okay, this is your opinion. Okay, got it. You may be darker than I think. You have good island tan. I am three-toned. My face has lighter golden than caramel. I don't really get what you're saying there, but no, for me, as far as where I would fall under, I actually fall under with this lady, the one at the bottom left. And you could look at my videos and stuff, and you could see. But yeah, she's about a 385 in Fenty. She's what I would consider, like I said, the darkest of what you would consider a light brown. But back to what I was saying on the last complexion of, light skin, to me, I consider people who are light brown or red brown or red in complexion, lighter than a paper bag, basically, would be like Rihanna, Nicki Minaj, Halle Berry, what's her name? Yara Shahidi. Things like that would, to me, be the definition of light brown or reddish complexion. Those people are light skinned, like I said, but they're not light skinned like the yellow bones. They're not light skinned like the top right example. The one at the bottom, to me, is still technically light skinned, but the experience is going to be totally different. Now, it's not going to be like you're going to be told you're dark skinned or anything. You still get told you're lighter, but it's just not, you're not going to be excluded for your skin tone, basically. You don't get the negativity. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your comment. Gabby Union is very dark brown girl, and I listened to her story. She wasn't kind to black people or girls growing up. She wasn't? Oh, I didn't know that. How was she towards black girls? Yeah, to me, I would consider her, like I said, I considered everyone, when I was young, I considered everyone darker skinned than like a paper bag, basically dark skinned. But, like I said, the reason why I consider brown skin darker nowadays is because of what other people have said, basically, with the whole thing of, brown skin. People always say like brown skin is the average complexion for black people. And also they say that brown skins are darker than paper bag. And also for those reasons, I kind of feel like brown skin is, the average complexion for a black person. I know a lot of black people wish their average complexion was the top complexion on the right or the bottom complexion on the left, but those aren't the average complexion that I've ever seen in any part of America. That's just my opinion. Honestly, I would say that in other countries, maybe, where there's just different types of black people, for example, that maybe that's the average, but I don't see that here in America. So for those reasons, that's why I consider it a little bit darker. But yeah, I also think, in the brown skin category. Oh, there's another comment. Sorry, I didn't see you, glitches over bitches. I was saying I'm three-tone. My skin are 3 colors on the caramel pecan. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I agree. I mean, like, I experienced the first 2 are normal, regular shade. What first 2? Which ones are you saying? To me, for my experience, and I'm saying this outside of my city that I'm in now. I'm in Vegas, so the average complexion is super dark. Just being honest, it's because everybody is tanned over here. They really are. But I would say in Michigan, which is more appropriate, I would say anyone between this is kind of lightish for Michigan, but the one at the top right would be average all the way to about the lady in the middle. That's what I've seen. And like I learned when I was in my teens not to call people those complexions dark because they act like it's an offensive term. Which to me, I mean, like, how is dark offensive but light is not? You know what I mean? If dark is offensive, then light is offensive too. But they're not offensive, they're just colors. There's one isn't better than the other. One, they're just different complexions, But anyway, like, yeah, so that's just generally the spectrum that I think of the complexions being in. Also, one other thing. I also think there's another, like, example that I kind of left out. Those are the people who are, like, light brown, but they're not considered light skinned, basically, because they're darker than a paper bag, but they're lighter than the one at the top left. I would say a good example of that would be like an Eva Pigford. Or Eva Marcille, I'm sorry. And I would say sometimes people like to call that light skin, like April Jones and things of that nature if they have certain features. And that's another part of colorism. I would say often, people who are in the light brown category, whether they're lighter than a paper bag or darker, sometimes it also has to do with their features. Like, for example, in this case, I specifically pointed these 2 people out because this one at the bottom left would have more narrower Eurocentric features than the one at the top right. People always focus a lot on skin tone, but there's also facial features and there's also hair texture. So when basically someone who is light brown has certain features that are more close to Eurocentric features, it changes how their experiences in general in the colorism spectrum. And so, for one, it's not always just specifically on skin tone, but also other features as well. And I would say Eva Marcille would be a good example of that. But I would say that generally once you get to about the lady at the top left's complexion, even if you do have those features, it kind of, at some point, to some people, is a way to kind of like, it doesn't basically have the same effect, basically. Just like, for example, when dark-skinned black people have, like, for example, a different type of hair, but a light-skinned black person has hair that is, oh, under white supremacy rule, they don't consider mixed people in their class white people or accept. They protect, they raise whiteness to black parents. African equals black. It's okay, biracials or mullet. Mullet? I don't really know what that word is. It's just that. I mean, when Gabby was growing up, huh? Yeah, I don't consider mixed people anything but black, honestly, but that's just my opinion. But I was just talking about the different complexions and the different experiences. Um, Also, I think there's one other part of this I wanted to talk about, and this has to do with dark skinned black people. For one, dark skinned black people sometimes overlap a lot with the complexion that's very close to dark skin, in my opinion. Reason why is because there's a lot of people who are like milk chocolate, who are basically the same complexion as like a Kelly Rowland. Now, you wouldn't really be able to tell much of a difference with Kelly Rowland and Brandy unless you were looking at them standing together or something of that nature, you know. But generally, this is why I think they get put into the dark skin category so easily, because phenotypically they have similar, complexions. They're close enough, But, the way I see it, somewhere it's got to be cut off, you know. And if you're lighter than chocolate, then therefore you're not really dark skinned, technically. So then I don't blame people who call themselves brown skinned at those complexions. It's kind of just like, um, I understand where they're coming from and what they mean. And honestly, growing up, I always knew my mother was about the same average complexion for black people. Like, I never thought she was darker than most black people. So, I guess that was the appropriate term for her. We still call her dark skin in my family, though. Um, And then, I don't really know the difference with dark skin after that. I know that there's like Lupita, and I think she's pretty average for a dark skinned person. She's a little lighter than Alec Weck, right? So I would say Alec Weck would be on the very dark end of dark skin. I would say Lupita is more like the middle side of dark skin. The lightest end of dark skin would be like Kelly Rowland. Then I would say the darkest end of brown skin would be like Brandy or Gabrielle Union. And then I would say in the middle would be more like Angela Bassett. And then I would say on the light brown end would be more like an Eva Pickford. Or, there you go. Would be like, what's it called? Eva Marcille, April Jones. The darker end of light skin, I would consider it more like, what's it called? Nicki Minaj, Rihanna, Halle Berry, Yara Shahidi, things like that. I consider Zoe Saldana kind of like on that dark end of light skin as well. Like, basically, like I said, like a light brown complexion. And then after that would be yellow. That's where I think normal, like, light skin begins, basically. And that would be more like Tisha Campbell and things like that. The lightest would be more like Mariah Carey or Halsey. So, yeah, that's... Oh, you said Angela Bassett isn't light brown? Yeah, I didn't say Angela Bassett was light brown. I said she was medium brown. And I'm only saying that because that's what people say. I have a hard time telling brown skin from dark brown. At that point, like I said, the lady at the top left, to me, looks not really any different than the lady in the middle, right. They, to me, look similar. I can't tell them apart. I would consider, when I was younger, I called them both dark skinned. But, like, I've kind of come to this point where I don't do that anymore, because most of the time, the people I called medium aren't called medium. And the reason I feel like, okay, maybe I'm wrong on that is because when people say average complexion for black people, I know that Rihanna isn't the average complexion for a black person. You know what I mean? I'm aware of that. I'm aware that even Marcel isn't the average complexion for a black person. I'm aware that Angela Bassett is the average complexion for a black person, and I'm aware that Gabrielle Union is the average complexion for a black person. So that would be the average brown complexion. It just would be under those standards. And also the fact that brown skin is supposed to be darker than a paper bag. So to me, I've always used the paper bag as a good way to segue to figure out what's what, kind of like thing. If you are lighter than the paper bag, then you're something like light brown, or light skin, or something of that nature. Multiracial. Sorry, no, mixed race people don't speak for... I'm so sorry. No, mixed race people don't speak for black people, especially us that's ADOS in America. We just call them biracial or mixed people. They speak for themselves. I don't really see it that way personally. Like, I kind of feel like people can try and divide black from mixed, but at the end of the day, black people are mixed. So trying to play this way of saying we're more pure than you is ignorance, in my opinion, because black Americans can take a DNA test and they will find that they're not just black. There's no black American that's just black. All black Americans are, mixed. And technically, on average, they're about like 22% white or so. They are 70%, 75, 74 to 82, I think, percent black on average, depending on the study. So because of that, I kind of consider them just, the same as mixed race people. Long ago, they actually had racial categories for mixed race people. They had for people who are half black, people who were 1/4 white, people who were 1/8 white. So black people definitely fall under those mixed race categories themselves. So they have no place to stand on calling other people mixed, in my opinion. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say on that. I was just trying to explain what I consider and what I'm saying when I say light skin, and also when I say brown skin and dark skin. And also, when I point out that someone is brown skin, I usually differentiate those who are darker brown from those who are lighter brown. And when I talk about people who are light skinned, I usually define the difference between people who are yellow bone, who I consider truly light skinned, from people who are red and who are light brown skinned. So yeah, I that's just basically how I define things. Another comment. No disrespect, but no. That dismissing our plight. I'm not mixed. I'm about 88 to 93% in my DNA, and a lot of us, we Americans, aren't all mixed. That 2 to 15% don't count through slavery. My DNA test. Um, Whether it's 2% or 15%, or 40% in my case, it's not really going to change that it's inside you and it's part of your ancestors and your relatives and your family. So to me, like on average, a black American's like 78% black. According to all the studies done, so even though you're more black than them, most black people are still in the mixed category. Also, people who are 88% black are basically 1/8 non-black. So that is basically still mixed because you still have one great grandparent that would be white or another race. And that's considered mixed race according to the original mixed race categories. They included people who were 1/8 white, not just a quarter white, also an eighth. It makes sense because you can look just like your grandparent anytime, and your grandparent would be mixed race, half black, half white. So, of course, there would be a correlation there. But yeah, I don't really. This was not really the topic. It was about my ideas of skin tone, and to me, like I said, what I consider light skinned is people who are, lighter than a paper bag. That would be people lighter or the complexion of the lady at the bottom left. Brown skin would be something darker than her, or like the lady at the top left, all the way to the complexion of the lady in the middle on the right. And dark skin would be like Lupita. So that's my designation of what I consider light skin, brown skin, and dark skin. I do think, obviously, there's a difference between light brown, medium brown, and dark brown, and there's a difference between red bones as well. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Oh, there's another comment. Barack Obama or Cardi are mixed race, biracials. They said it themselves, and no, my grandparents are all African. My parents and both grandparents, both sides, are black. No, lol. No, it's connected. Basically, how it works is for Black Americans, we don't have like one grandparent who's white. That's not how we get DNA tests done, and it shows 22% European. What happens is most of our ancestors were mixed, basically. So most of our ancestors were 70% black, and they had kids with people who are 70% black. So basically, someone who had a white grandparent had kids with another person who had white grandparent, and then so forth and so forth and so forth. So to me, that's why I consider Black Americans mixed, just the same as mixed race people. So therefore, Black is mixed and mixed is Black, and it's the same thing. But yeah, that's how I see that. Thank you for listening, though. Have a great day. Bye.